happening there? Good morning and welcome to Polk County School Board work session on this fine day. We will now call this work session for May 14th, 2024 to order. I would like to thank everyone for being here, especially our staff. I see them in the back lined up. They're available and accessible to help us as we address any questions that come forward. We are humbled to serve alongside of you and the most highly educated workforce in the nation. And I would like to start by reading our Who Are We statement. We are the Polk County Leadership and Governance Team. If we were to pick one word to describe us or define us, it would be student-centered. Because when we come together to work, we lean on our diverse backgrounds and experiences to ensure that our decisions are focused on providing a high-quality education for all students. The four most important things to our governance team are: 1, operating with integrity; 2, respecting our students, our staff, families, and each other; 3, establishing a culture where stakeholders feel valued, supported, and have opportunities for personal and professional growth; 4, supporting an approach of continuous improvement to ensure student outcomes. So collectively, we need to work on behalf of our children that we serve and find avenues of agreement so that we can govern the district in an effective manner. There's no acceptable alternative. We will always collaborate in a respectful manner in order to enhance opportunities for each student and staff member. We will not disparage others. Our students, we want them to thrive because we will remain committed to supporting the whole child. We hope to engage and empower our students and stakeholders to create this community of lifelong learners. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Superintendent Hyde to lead us in our work session today.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, members of community and staff. Thank you for being here this afternoon. The first item up on today's agenda is Zello, so I'll go ahead and invite that team to come up to the podium. Before they start, just as a reminder for the board, if you recall, a little over a month ago, the board benefited during a workshop from a presentation from a company called SchoolLinks, which offers a product that we have demonstrated an interest in. Zello is the product that we currently utilize in Polk County. So in fairness, I wanted to make sure that you saw the comparison between the two. You were able to ask any questions that you may have for additional follow-up. Obviously, if you have questions after this morning's workshop or this afternoon's workshop, please let me know. We'll get you responses to those. But before I bring a final recommendation to the board, I wanted to, in fairness, wanted to make sure that Zello had an opportunity to also present. So thank you for being here with us today. I'll turn it over to you.
And board members for bringing us in today to speak with you. It's really our pleasure. So we have 10 minutes together and really want to cover three main things. First of all, just a bit of background on Zello, kind of who we are and what we do. And then the second is Zello has been selected as a statewide career and college readiness platform for school systems across the state, and we just want to share a bit of information about how that initiative is working and basically what school districts are entitled to as part of that contract, part of that state contract. And then we wanted to talk about the great progress that has been made so far within your school system here in Polk County, all of the terrific work that has been done to date to implement Zello. And then, of course, we've set aside 5 minutes for questions. So just a bit about kind of who we are. My name is Jeff Harris, and I'm one of the founders of Zello. The idea to create a program like this really came from my own experiences graduating from college and not having a clue what I was going to do next, and it's a scary situation. Some of you may be able to relate. Unfortunately, it's all too common these days. Fast forward 25 plus years, and we're now a company of 250 very mission-driven, focused, intelligent, hardworking individuals who are focused on one thing and one thing only, which is to build the most helpful career planning resources possible for students. So joining me today is Noah Noah is overseeing our statewide deployment of Zello, and Anthony Cook is one of our trainers. We're very fortunate to have Anthony here today, and he can also share some of his experiences overseeing career programming in Osceola. Also on the screen, Carrie and Gigi, who work very, very closely with the school district currently, Carrie being the district success manager and Gigi being the onboarding manager, taking care of all data integration issues for the district. So just a bit about the Zello program. I'm not sure how familiar some of you may be with what you get in a kind of a college and career readiness platform. So there's a lot of things. These are pretty big and robust platforms these days. For us, the approach is to provide a full K-12 solution. So really grade by grade students have an age appropriate set of resources to help them figure out who they are, what their options are, and start to build a plan to get to where they want to go. So with Zello, Polk County has access to a full suite of K-12 resources. Inside of Zello, the district is able to accomplish a lot of really critical workflows. One is being able to set a scope and sequence of activities grade by grade, so it's a coordinated district-wide approach. It's not that students are doing one thing and then coming in the next year and doing the same thing again, or finding that it's a very disjointed experience. What they did last year doesn't connect with what they did this year. So it really allows a district to build out that seamless scope and sequence and be able to deliver a consistent approach district-wide. Districts can also accomplish some really mission-critical workflows inside of the platform. One is course exploration and course selection. So while they're doing their career exploration and planning, they're able to figure out which courses are aligned with their career path and make those selections for next year. And we've configured the district's course book so they're making valid selections, checking prerequisites, making sure that they're aligned with graduation requirements. They can also, inside the platform, work on their work-based learning opportunities. So there's a database of work-based learning opportunities, and that process can be managed inside the platform. And then finally, the college-going process is also managed inside of Zello. So students can explore colleges that they might be interested, that are aligned with their career goals. They can make plans and apply to those colleges through the platform. So that just gives you a bit of a feel for what happens inside of Zello. The partnership in Florida is fairly unique, and it's unique in a few ways. So first of all, the state has subscribed to our full suite of tools, and that means everything that we do is available K to 12. Every district gets access to all of those tools. The other thing is the vision that the state has is very much college and career readiness combined with work-based learning. So the vision is to have a platform that does both of those things seamlessly together, and that's been a tremendous opportunity for us to build out the work-based learning functionality, but also to hire staff who can create a statewide database of employers and work-based learning opportunities to lighten the load on districts, because often that is a barrier for districts. The challenge is to resource that outreach effort. And districts, of course, can do that, but we can also, through these hired staff, support those efforts statewide. The other thing that's a bit unique about our approach in Florida is while we get funding and we get a lot of guidance from the state level, we get coordination around training, so we have a number of trainers on the ground who are available to districts whenever they need them. So that coordination is really great, but we very much manage each and every district individually with their own set of goals, their own training plan, their own implementation plan, because each district is different in terms of how they want to prioritize and approach college and career readiness. So far, the deployment of Zello across the state has been going incredibly well. So Zello is now adopted in all of the districts across the state, and we are currently supporting almost 2 million students with the platform, and this is year one. So really, really has been a great start so far. And a big part of that, I think, is the work that our training team has done on the ground. And with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Anthony, who can share some of the support that he's been providing along with the other trainers around the state.
Just real quickly, as the trainer that's assigned here to Polk, just want to make sure that we share with you that we have had a handful of trainings already. from your district CTE team to your middle school counselors twice, your high school counselors twice. And just somewhat of a testimony, I'm right next door to y'all, Osceola County, 20 years as an educator. The last 5 years I've served as the coordinator of college and career services. And if you've heard anything about some of the movement we've had in Osceola, we were about 10 years ago 61st in the state for college matriculation. And it was just announced a couple of weeks ago that we've moved up to 4th in the state. There are several reasons for that. I was part of the team that launched the Got College initiative in Osceola County, but one of those that we saw significant evidence of success was when we switched to Zello, which we actually launched during COVID year. So imagine that. Prior to COVID year, we had 79% of our students give us confirmed plans. We track confirmed plans as just evidence that a student will either enroll in a 4-year, 2-year technical college, enlist in the military, seek high wage employment, or working with one of our vetted organizations for exploration. We jumped up from 79 to when I left in May, 90% of our seniors had a confirmed plan. And that was the highest that we've been over the course of the 5 years. That increase we attribute heavily to the use of Zello. And it wasn't just in high school. We actually used Zello K all the way up through 12th grade. And one of the great things about that is we saw that 92% of our students, if they had a confirmed plan within 2 years of graduation, tend to follow through with that plan. So we just wanted to share a little bit of that testimony because I'm right next door. So I'm not just a trainer. I have all this insight, having run college and career readiness as your neighbor. So that's my little piece. And I'm going to pass this over to Noah, who is our state representative here with Zello.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Jeff. We're going to zoom through these slides because I've got a minute and a half left. But we have worked with the Department of Education to customize Zello for Florida. We brought in regional and county data to make that experience really unique for students in Florida and more relevant for them. We have some testimonials here. I think prior to the session today, you all had a chance to review this deck. So we have quotes here, both from our lead contact at the Florida Department of Education, other educators across the state, as well as an educator in your district that is already using Zello. Next, I want to highlight some of our accomplishments already here in Polk County. So we've completed data integration. We set up single sign-on. Your students are logging into the platform already. We have now surpassed 35,000 logins this school year, and this is our first year, of course, implementing this platform here in your county. We've launched students in middle and high school. We've incorporated Zello lessons into your students' classroom activities. That's one of the key components of Zello, is our built-in lessons or curriculum that students are exploring as part of a social studies class in middle school, as part of a civics class, potentially part of a math class in high school. So weaving in future readiness into the work that your students are already doing in the classroom. Next, our goal here at Polk County is to implement Zello's elementary tools, a really exciting initiative for next year. Here we have some photos from training sessions that we've already held in your district, a little bit more about the stats. We've also got some testimonials from students here in your district. There's links that have been shared with you so that you can review those. And I want to leave you all today with a review of the initiatives that we have composed as part of this slide through collaboration with your district representatives. And on the next several slides, we showcase to you how Zello is going to support each of these initiatives. In some cases, we're doing that already with Zello's course planning tool. Your educators can already track students who are off track for graduation in Zello. And in other cases, we're working to implement these specific features to support these initiatives and better prepare Polk County students for their next step after high school. I'll pause there because I imagine there's some questions from the board members, and I appreciate you having us here with you today.
Ms. Miller?
Thank you. It was nice to meet you earlier. I just have a couple of questions. What do you use to report where the students end up? Is it self-reporting? How do you know that they're at these different opportunities?
That's a great question. So we do have a partnership with NSC, so we can ingest the data from NSC, the student tracker report, so that educators can see that information directly in Zello. So that's one option. Another,
I'm sorry, can you tell the public NSC?
Oh, National Student Clearinghouse.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another option is to survey your students. So we have a built-in survey tool where students can be surveyed as they approach graduation as to what they are planning to do after graduation. And there is flexibility to survey students post-graduation as well. In our experience, the survey results post-graduation are not as robust as surveying your students as they're approaching graduation in senior year.
That would be my concern. That's always our issue when we're trying to do post-graduation surveys. But to know the long term, did we get them through the door, and are they currently in those opportunities, whether working or internships? I have another question. Same-size districts similar to Palm Beach County or us, do you have data on how often it's been, like, grade level wise? Is it used more, and how often it's used, and the results from those?
Great question. So during this first year of implementation in the state of Florida, we have focused our attention at the middle school level because of the middle school career and academic planning requirement. So of course, that's a requirement that students are meant to complete as they approach high school. So that's been our focus, and we're seeing great numbers in terms of usage at the middle school level. So over 50% of students have developed their PCAP in Zello this school year across the entire state of Florida. We're hoping to, of course, get that number closer to 100% during our second year of implementation. And one of our goals in our second year is also to, of course, expand both to the to the high school and to elementary students as well across the state. So although we work individually with each district, we have found that across the state, primarily our focus has been at the middle school level during this first year.
So Hillsborough and Palm Beach are not using, they're only using middle school?
Hillsborough and Palm Beach have both introduced Zello to their high school students.
I understood.
Yeah. And I believe in Hillsborough, we've done a soft launch to elementary students as well. Elementary students generally fall into that year 2 of implementation with a focus on middle and high school in year 1. Like I said, even though we were focusing on middle and high school in various districts, we really target our attention on middle school educators and students and making sure that they were feeling comfortable in the platform, because we wanted to ensure that educators had what they needed to support students with that requirement as part of Senate Bill 240.
So yours, my last question, so your data points would be, if you're starting in middle school and working that way, there's a lag in the success, the true success of the outcomes. Or do you have, is it annual data to show the usage?
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at annual data. So this year we're looking at, this is our first year
Right.
of implementation in the state of Florida. Osceola County was one district that was using Zello pre-statewide implementation. But we
You had a founder from Osceola County, if I understand, right? You worked and/or came from Osceola at one point?
No, not the founder, me.
Okay, you, okay.
To your question, Ms. Miller, you've got Pinellas, you've got Osceola and Marion that are using it for elementary. It's really a district decision because of Senate Bill 240, what Noah said, with focusing on the middle school. Those districts, though, that have launched elementary comprehensively are ranging anywhere between 65 to 85% engagement, meaning they've completed the lessons that have been assigned to them. That gives you some idea of those size districts comparatively to Polk. And we are scheduled to train your elementary team here in the next couple of months. So then y'all will have that launch too and will have that data.
So you worked for Osceola Schools, but you no longer work for them, you now work for Zello. Thank you.
Dr. Allen?
Thank you, Superintendent. So glad y'all are here. Appreciate you unraveling some of the features and so forth. I've just got a couple questions as well to sort of maybe probe a little bit more. You mentioned like the opportunity for districts to build out specific features that would be unique to that district. Can you maybe speak to some of those? And is it more development side or just some implementation of some type of feature in particular?
That's a great question. So first off, Zello's course planning tool is built specifically for a school district. and for schools as well. So obviously different schools offer different courses. So we work with the district to implement that feature. The feature is already developed in the platform. It's simply bringing in your course offerings, setting up any CTE pathways that you offer in the district, and then of course launching that particular feature to students. That's underway already in Polk County. There are students who have already engaged with the course planning tool. Another feature that requires some implementation work is Xellow's work-based learning module. So we work with your team to bring your work-based learning opportunities into the platform so that students can explore those work-based learning opportunities, make requests, add documents, add resources, enter their hours as they complete those work-based learning opportunities. So that's another feature that's currently being implemented at Polk County. It's not something that your students are already engaging with, but something that's part of our year 2 implementation plan. And as Jeff mentioned, we're also building out a statewide network of opportunities. So working really closely with the Florida Chamber of Commerce as well as local chambers to develop a larger network for students to tap into, whether it's virtually or in person.
Okay, great.
I'll just add one thing to that
Yeah.
really quick. There's kind of 3 layers, and Noah really referenced one, which is configuring the system kind of district by district and even school by school as necessary. Then there's really the backlog of customization that the state desires to see. There's an opportunity to continue to localize the platform for Florida. And then the third is district priorities, districts saying this is really important to us. So an example would be the Bright Future Scholarship tracking and how important that is, and that's coming up in a lot of district conversations. So we've now prioritized that at the state level. So the goal is to be really responsive in all of those ways to requests for customization.
Yeah, that's great. It, always makes you curious, like, what is it that, from a state initiative, then that would be a beneficial feature coming down the road to benefit individual school districts as well. So you talked about the scope and sequence a bit, and the implementation at the middle school level. So if we look at the comparative, right? That's what I'm, considering, like a comparative analysis in a sense. So the competitor would know, hey, you can have 6 years of scope and sequence. Whereas, so I don't know if is that present? Is there 6 years that currently would be in your application, or is it only 4 years of scope and sequence for courses? So is it from 9th grade to 12th, or is it from 7th grade to 12th, as far as in the scope and sequence?
So Xellow's course planning tool is built for students to begin selecting courses in the 8th grade for 9, 10, 11, and 12. But the scope and sequence goes beyond course selection. It really digs into Xellow's lessons that we've touched on. So Xellow brings in 5 lessons per grade level that students can explore various different future readiness topics, and those build upon each other. So there are topics in the 6th grade that are relevant to students at that age range, and then we build upon that as students move to 7, 8, 9, 10. So each time students are logging into the platform, they're seeing a new set of lessons that are targeted towards learning objectives in that grade level.
Great.
And Dr. Allen, that scope and sequence you're referring to, like we go back to Senate Bill 240, I make this joke anytime that we're training in districts. Like, we literally have been doing this for 20 years. We've traditionally called it the EPAP, the 4-year plan. So Xellow's course planner helps address the state's requirement for students in 8th grade to start planning out their 4-year plan. That makes sense.
And the scope and sequence, if you think about learning opportunities, really starts in kindergarten. So there's activities for that grade and each elementary grade, and then also tailored activities right through middle school and high school.
Great. Thank you. That's all I had, Superintendent.
Thank you. There are no further questions or comments. Appreciate it. Board members, the next item up in front of and before you is Men's Warehouse, Joseph A. Bank. We have with us today, make sure I get the name correctly, Miss Lawson.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I appreciate you all taking the time to spend with you. Didn't get to do half of your presentation. It's all good. So my name is Gina Lawson, and yes, I work for, it's called Tailored Brands. So Men's Warehouse purchased Joseph Banks about 6 years ago. I just wanted to give you my story, my background. So I started there, I was 17 years old. And I started there because I actually went there to get my prom dress fitted. And they said, do you want a job? And I'm like, well, tell me about this place. And so I've been there ever since. I've been there 28 years. And at the time, I was actually going to school to be a teacher. And so I have always had a place in my heart for teachers and for our future. And I'm really proud to be able to tell you about Tailored Brands and what we can do for the future here with students. So I loved here, Dr. Allen, your values here with the school board kind of align with a little bit of ours. So one big thing at Tailored Brands, we help people love the way they look and feel for their most important moments. And that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing with prom just passing right now. There's nothing better than somebody coming out of the dressing room and you see their confidence change. And I love that I get to be a part of that in interviews, the weddings, it's just really cool. And even the funerals, right? That part of somebody's life where we've had to dress them when it hasn't been, a great moment, but we were still there and took care of them. And our values as a company and as an individual every single day, I start my day by reading these, but we put our customers first, which is also our employees. We try to win together every single day. We just try to be better every day, right? Every day we wake up, I just want to be better than I was yesterday. And knowing that everyone is welcome. We were just named the top companies to work for diversity, which I think is really cool. And then acting with integrity. That's a big deal. And we teach those values to our employees. And I thought, that's a great way to segue into, your students coming to work for us as well. So with that, I wanted to tell you that we do tuition reimbursement, which a lot of our, a lot of people don't know this about Tailored Brands. So if you're full-time, we pay for 2 classes and the books for those classes, and if you're part-time, we pay for 1. We also hire seasonally too, which I think is really cool. We just started that this past year. I actually have some retired teachers that work for us. I don't know if you know Miss Linda Robinson. She was at Winter Haven for over 30 years, and she works for me in Sarasota. And I met her by coming to one of your schools doing a Dress for Success, which I'll tell you about in just a few minutes. But we have, we help dress them. So when they come to work, we give them a 65% off discount, which is always nice. You can actually pay through your paycheck to get your wardrobe started. And then we offer discounts on other things as well. And like I said, we hire at a really decent rate, starting at $15 an hour, which is fantastic as a part-time seasonal high school student. What is also awesome about us is that we have over 900 stores. So with that, like right now I have students that were going to school at FSU, and now they're moving back to Tampa, and so they come and work at both stores. And so I think that's awesome. That's something that we can do. If you're a great employee, I'm going to find you a position wherever that may take you. So I love that. We hire at the age of 15, which is very uncommon, right? So we do follow all the rules when it comes to how many hours they work. We offer free tuxedos for them for prom. And then we learn vital skills about customer service. I mean, that's what we do. It doesn't matter what I'm selling. We're going to treat our customers right. And those are skills that I learned at a very young age. And so it's helped me, throughout my career for sure. And then we use technology and then learning to work with others. Also, if you look at all of our collateral that you see, it's all of our own employees. So we don't hire models. So it's always our employees, which is also pretty cool. And like social media, so many positions have been created based on our employees and things that have been brought to us. I was telling somebody earlier today that we had somebody that came from CFAA before COVID, and he said to me, Miss Gina, why don't you guys do anything on social media? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's not my thing. And he actually went to Men's Warehouse and said, hey, we need to start posting about prom, these hashtags. And he got a really hefty check from Men's Warehouse for really thinking about this and taking on some social media from here in Polk County. I was like, how cool was that? So it was just amazing to me. And so we're really about giving these high school students a chance. And this just shows you a map of our locations, and I'm actually getting ready to go look at one in Ocala this afternoon. So we're opening up some new locations as well, which is just more opportunities for the future. But what we really do is dress to inspire too. So when when these students come to work for us, we are helping them to inspire not only themselves but others. And we do work with women as well. I know it's Men's Warehouse and Joseph Banks, and you may think we only help men, but this is actually one of our suits. And so I wear our clothing as well, and so I wanted to showcase that, and we do a lot of that, a lot. One of the things I wanted to make sure that you know about, and this is really where I think we can really have a great partnership all year round, is our Dress for Success program. So what we do is we come to schools and we teach basic interview skills. And we've done it in setting like this. I've done it for 1,200 students. I've done it for 5. I've done it for middle school, and I've done it all the way up to colleges as well, right? So we've done, and even businesses that want to change their image, we also do that as well. But we help them with basic skills and how to prepare for an interview, what to do before the interview, during the interview, and then after the interview. Everything is online now, so it's very frustrating for somebody looking for a job now. You apply online and it goes into this hole and you don't hear back from anyone. This is what I hear from students all the time. So we help them on really figuring how to get there. How to make a positive first impression. That's a big deal, right? How you look and how you feel and that first impression, you can't redo that. The right clothing, right? Depending if you're going, to Chick-fil-A or if you're going to, a bank. We help you research that and really figure out what's the right look for you. And then how it should fit, right? So it's not just the clothing, but does it fit you properly? Just because something is in style does not mean you should necessarily wear it, right? And we've also followed up with different details. We also help with resume writing. So I have a lot of students that send me their resumes. Miss Gina, can you check this for me, make sure that it's good? And so we help with that as well. So this is some pictures, so just some recent Dress for Success presentations that we did. Something that we also do is we also bring ties and we teach them how to tie a tie, and we also donate those ties to those students that were brave enough to volunteer. They get to keep those. So what we're really looking to do is we want year-long relationships. So we really want to be able to help in any way that you think that Tailored Brands can do so. So we would be willing to help with school supply drives. I noticed in your office that you have a box there for uniforms. We would love to be drop-off locations for that. If you wanted to use our parking lot for something or even our storefront for something, we'd want to be able to help with that. Any kind of community giving, if you need help, my managers and my teams are willing to come to you. We do have 2 locations in this area. One is at Lakeside Village, that's the Joseph Banks. And then we have another one that's on the, I call it the north side, which is by the mall, by Target and Moe's. So we have those 2 locations, which are pretty decent when it comes to your where your schools are located. We also donate for homecoming courts. So when a school is doing a big, we donate those tuxedos. We also, this year, we donated 2 tuxedos to deserving students. So we were trying to get in touch with schools. And hey, we have 2 rentals that we can give to at your discretion. You just tell me what you want to do with them. We had great success with that. We're also doing teacher coupons that we're going to be doing this year. A big thing that we've done in the past is a suit drive that we've asked our customers and the community to bring in clothing that they no longer wear. And we want to be able to donate that and have school closets for these young men and women. So they have professional clothing to start when it comes to interviewing, because I know it's difficult to get started. We also do mock interviews. I have done lots of these where I've gone into schools and they've come to us and we have practiced different interviews so we can really help them feel good and really feel confident when they are in for their first interviews. And then we help with graduation too. And then, like I already told you, with employment as well. So we are also board advisors for DECA and FBLA, and do a lot of work with FFA. My children were in all of these, and so I was never a part of any of those. So when my children did, I thought that was pretty cool. There's a lot of scholarship opportunities with these programs, and I've judged lots of competitions, so both on the district, the state, and the national level. And then, like I said, we help with the mock interviews and resume prep. So here's just some of the schools that we've helped with recently. My dad actually graduated from Lakeland High School, which I think is really cool. And my husband was at Lake Gibson, and my kids went to all 3. So George Jenkins and Lake Gibson and Kathleen. So got some deep roots here in Lakeland. I was born here. I didn't go to school here, but I was born here. So we really, I'd love to see all your schools be partners with us, and so that we can help students just help with the future. And we do. I've actually done Dress for Success for 7th and 8th graders as well, because I believe, especially when they're in competitions with FFA and DECA and FBLA, just teaching them some basic skills and how to present and be in front of people and that confidence level. We're here to help with that. And so I'd love any feedback that you have on anything else that you think that we could do. Again, here's some other pictures of things that we've done with schools locally with fashion shows and just, being there for questions and Dress for Success presentations. So I appreciate you all. Is there any questions or any feedback you have for me?
Ms. Miller?
Thanks for coming in today. I actually didn't know that Tailored Brands own both of those or the services that you provided to help students. So I just want to say thank you from District 7, which is Northside Lake Gibson, as well as Auburndale. And I look forward to helping our community liaisons link to you and support our students. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's been part of the problem. Nobody knows what we do, and so that's why I was like, we got to get in front of the school board so I can tell you what we do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Wyatt?
Thank you. My comments were going to be similar to Lisa's, and I was thrilled to see Jeanette taking notes of I'm sure she's going to get you connected with Tassel, as I saw her hand writing as you were mentioning having a box set up. So thank you for all that you've been doing. I'm excited to see how much more you guys can do as we start to spread the word, and now that we know we can share. And so I know, Jeanette, I'm sure we'll get you connected with some of our community liaisons and see how we can get you plugged in. I had Linda Robinson as a teacher, so I know that she is retired now and loving her life in Sarasota, closer to grandchildren. But I'm thrilled that you guys have her and that she's still able to be plugged in that way. Because
Yes, she couldn't sit home, so I was like,
Of course
come work
not.
for me for a little while. Awesome. That's cool. You know her. Very cool. Thank you.
so thank you for all you're doing.
There are no further questions or comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Next item, board members, I'll invite Principal Dart Myers from South Point Elementary down to the podium. So as the board knows, this is a brand spanking new school, and Mr. Myers is already here with a request to name the facility on his campus. So Principal Myers, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Hyde and board members. So we're almost complete our first year, just a few more days. It's been an exciting year and getting through there. But a little over a year ago, I think it's end of March, we're here and naming the school, South Point. I know the naming committee came up with 4 names. And I know one of their desires, and I think it was shared, they had a unique opportunity to incorporate all 4 names into the school. So South Point, name of the school. Osprey Elementary, use the Osprey as a mascot. Osprey Landing, we have an outdoor patio dining area, and formally named it Osprey Landing. And then now for the formal request is our media center after Effie Reeves Sensabaugh. So she was an educator back in 1894 to 1943, almost 50 years. She finally got her 4-year degree at 64 in 1932, and she's only about 4'8". So she served primarily Winter Haven area, a lot of primarily first and second grade. I think she worked in Bartow. If you look at the history, a lot of you know Bob Gernert from Winter Haven. The historian there, he had a lot of that information to share with us. So it was an honor for her to name the media center and incorporate all 4 names into the school. She does have family. Nancy Sensabaugh Baker just retired in 2023 from Chain of Lakes as a teacher. I know her brother's in the area, Mark Sensabaugh, and some other families. So that's our request there in naming the media center for Effie Reeves Sensabaugh. And that final piece, incorporating all 4 names. I don't think all the years I've been in the school district had an opportunity to use all 4 names into a school and naming different components of it. So I think that's kind of a neat opportunity there.
Dart, remind me, if I recall correctly, her name was actually in consideration for the facility initially, correct?
Correct. Yes, it was one of the 4 names that was there.
Okay. Board members, all of the required documents are attached here for your review and consideration. And I see Ms. Wyatt.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be able to support this, and I was wondering last time I was out there when this was going to be coming up, because I know you had a little bit going on this year as far as opening a new school, but I'm excited to see this come forward. I'm assuming the family has been made aware that this is in the process, and we'll make sure that they're included in the recognition when this gets approved. So, awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Sharpless?
So, Principal Myers, I remember being on the naming committee as part of this, and we definitely talked about this coming to fruition. So I'm glad to see it's actually coming in front of us as a board. My questions for Superintendent Hyde: will this come before us for a vote in June? I'm assuming.
I recall correctly, I thought it was back-to-back, but I may be mistaken. Okay. So yes, it would be June.
Okay. So in June, I would like to just put it out there, I would like to read my letter of support when it comes up for a vote. So thank you very much for following through with the request of the naming committee and also with SACS.
Okay, thank you.
There are no further questions or comments. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. Braving the storm for the much-needed rain that we have right out. Board members, I'm going to skip ahead one item. because I'm going to go ahead and allow Ms. Pasco to address multiple items simultaneously. So at this time, I'd like to bring Candy Amato forward. I saw her enter the room. Ms. Amato has an update regarding Navigator Academy of Leadership.
Good afternoon. Glad I got here one item before my item. So before you are two draft charter contracts. One is a charter renewal for the Navigator Academy of Leadership Davenport K-8. This is their very first renewal. They are seeking a 5-year renewal contract. The second contract before you is the Navigator Academy of Leadership High School, which will serve grades 9 through 12. They have deferred, so they will not open in August of 24. They are seeking to open in August of 25. And that their standard contract, they did have some unique language, but it did not change the meaning of the contract. So Mr. Bridges was okay with the language that they had requested.
Ms. Amato, I see no questions or comments. Thank you, ma'am. Great presentation. And now you'll thank me that I didn't make you wait through Ms. Pasco's one-to-one update. So, Ms. Pasco. Board members, again, I'll just share some of this because for two newly elected board members, it's important to have a little bit of the historical perspective. When I first arrived in the district, we were very fortunate to have received a $30+ million grant that essentially allowed us to transition to a one-to-one school district and unify our processes, unify our devices. This summer, at the conclusion of our year 2 deployment, students have the opportunity to take their devices home over the summer, not just to simply have devices, but there will be aligned curriculum supports and learning opportunities that are also being sent home along with our students to maintain that continuum and allow our students to go ahead and continue to stay engaged, but also to potentially provide some enrichment opportunities and continue that learning curve in a beneficial and positive way. So Ms. Pasco and her team are here to provide you with an update on our one-to-one deployment and initiatives associated with that. Ms. Pasco.
All right, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to come and talk about the great work that we've been able to accomplish under Mr. Hyde's tenure. I'm going to turn it over to my team. I think it's important they be able to advocate for their different areas, and of course, I'll be in the background if there are any questions.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Hyde and distinguished board members in the community of Polk County. I get to kick off our presentation. My name is Lindsay Sharp. I'm the Senior Director of IT Logistics. I joke with people that I help manage and support our network managers and that I count devices. But what we are going to talk about today is going one-to-one. And when we start that journey, a lot of people see that as when we look in schools, we see devices. We see students with devices and staff with devices. But it takes so much more than that. But where I start the journey is with that first step. So with working with network managers, we're the first person our students and staff come in contact with. We consider ourselves the tier 1 or the first level of support or the boots on the ground. So what our network managers do is we work with EERS, our local land services, and instructional technology. We'll take you through that journey today. So before one-to-one, buildings had network managers, and network managers would support the labs that were in schools, whether it was a workforce lab or a fab lab, an art lab, and usually there were carts of devices on a campus. They made sure that they supported that technology and managed it, and they did do some basic troubleshooting. Well, after one-to-one, they still do those things, but instead of it being just labs or carts, we now have every student and every staff member with a device. They've moved this year, too, into using Incident IQ as a formal ticketing system. And once again, they are managing now not carts of devices or rooms of devices, but individualized devices. They go a step further and help with our Flight Academy, which is something that we do with all students. And they are also the big piece of our puzzle when it comes to inventory in a building. So they have to know how many devices they have in their building, whether it's for students, staff, labs, and they work with us with device refreshes, with pulling out legacy equipment or old equipment, and making sure our infrastructure is safe. What that looks like for day to day is we know then that they are that boots on the ground and they are that first level. When an end user, a student or a staff member puts in a ticket, our network manager is the first one to respond to that ticket. So they do basic troubleshooting and then they will escalate the ticket based on who needs help where. We know that they help not only support those devices, but projectors, smart boards and panels in our classrooms, sound systems, light speed. They help with our copiers. They also help, like we talked about, with the labs, but they've also embarked on a journey of helping with pilots. As we pilot new things in technology, network managers have taken on part of this role as well. They are also our point of contact at our buildings with device insurance, and we know we've offered that for 2 years to our staff and students. Some examples, though, of how their work has really changed. When we look at Code Academy, prior to one-to-one, they had 230 devices on their campus. After one-to-one, they're now supporting 719 devices. When we look at Lakeland Highlands Middle, they were supporting 400 devices prior to one-to-one, and then post one-to-one, we're at 1,751 devices. So quite an increase when we say, hey, we're going to go one-to-one, what that looks like. This year, to continue to support our one-to-one rollout, we added some additional positions. They're network manager floaters. There were 16 positions allocated. And these people, or the individuals, work as network managers, but they float, and they're dispatched to help. So, for example, this year they've covered vacancies. When we've had a network manager vacancy at a school, they step in and cover. When we've had network managers go on FMLA and start a family, we cover. When we have staff members that are military that go to guard or go to military training, we cover there too. We are also assisting in larger schools. So for our schools with over 1,000 students, we inventoried schools last spring and said, hey, if we get these positions, would you like help? So they're on a rotating basis to help. They also work in our department and help with ClassLink. And they help with land support. When we do projects with our land team, we help them. And we've also helped EERS with asset management, device inventory. When we have construction sites, we come in and help those projects. So speaking of EERS, I've got behind me my colleague, Mr. Jim Carrier, and he's going to talk to you about what our EERS team does.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name's Jim Carrier. I'm the IST coordinator for computer support. By no means am I a public speaker, so excuse me. I do have 24 team members that are computer support technicians. I have 4 that are signed to copier printer repair, 2 audiovisual, and thanks to Ms. Pasco, I have 4 ESSER-funded iPad positions. Again, not a public speaker here.
You're doing great.
We're trying. I have 14 technicians in the schools that take care of about 118,000 devices, and that's for the students and the teachers. And the 4 ESSER-funded positions take care of 82,000 iPads, so that's a lot of equipment they take care of. When asked what our biggest changes we've seen going one-to-one, it is definitely the work tickets. This time last year, we had 12,899 tickets. This year, we're sitting at 28,000. And by the end of this year, school year, we'll top 30,000. So with that said, that's a 117% increase in our work volume. And the majority of that's been broken screens, broken damaged keyboards, spills, things like that. I can't say enough about the technicians we have. I mean, they're phenomenal. I mean, they're staying on top of all this, which again, double their workload, and they're able to keep their head above water. So, you know, kudos to those. They're awesome people. Again, I'll let you come up and finish this off if you like.
Jim told me this morning that he'd rather wrestle a 12-foot alligator than have to come talk.
And I have.
So I promised him I would be here.
Well, just imagine Dr. Allen is a big alligator.
Okay. All right. All right, let's go.
Part of why I asked Mr. Carrier to be here is I think it's important that his staff know that we appreciate the work that they do. They're behind the scenes. I've met with them in the last couple weeks, and the increase has been significant in the workload they do. However, when Jim and I also looked through the data, we realized that approximately 15% of our students have submitted for repairs on their devices this year. So I want to flip that. How many students have not submitted for repairs? That's a significant number of students that, thanks to Jim's team and the work that they've changed, when I got here, they had routes. They would go from the district office to a building that put in a work order, and they would repair the device on site. Correct, Jim? And Jim looked at me and said, that's the way it is, and we've done that how many years?
34 years.
34 years Jim's been with us. That's pretty significant workload to look at. And he said, I'm not sure how I could do it differently. So as we started to go through one-to-one, he and his team got together and we met and looked at how we could do things differently, and we've rechanged that workflow so that they bring devices in, and if they've got 5 devices need to be repaired, they get 5 new devices and we take the devices back. So we're trying to work that through as quickly as possible. So it was important to highlight that work today, to highlight how that's changed and the work of Jim's team and the telecom. Have you shared about the telecom group yet?
I don't know anything about the telecom. I'll let you take care of that.
I'll take care of that too.
I think you have those numbers. You're good.
Okay, yes, sir. Mr. Brian Collins could not be here with us today. He expressed his apologies, but he had already committed to a field trip with his daughter, and I told him that was more important to do. So told him that I would speak up for him today. The other side of the team is the telecom group, and they handle all of our wiring, but they handle our access points. So if you think about that, if we don't have the access points, it doesn't matter who has a device. They use all the data outlets, the wireless connectivity, and they've installed over 1,000 new access points in the last 18 months. So we want to make sure we're highlighting that team as well. Yep, it's a great group of men and women. They do really hard work. And with that, we're going to bring up, I believe, Mr. Brian Cook to talk about his department.
Good afternoon, Superintendent Hyde, board members. My name is Brian Cook. I'm the Senior Manager of Land Services. I lead a fantastic team who ensures the internet stays online at all of your schools for all the digital learning that takes place. I have 9 coordinators beneath me that I work with on a daily basis. Each one of them oversees about 15 schools apiece. We have regionalized support. So for every 15 schools you have, you also are a backup support for another 15 schools. That allows us to cover when someone's out, different emergencies in different areas where we have them regionalized to be able to provide the differentiated support the schools need. They handle all of the network switch installs and configurations at the schools. That is what delivers the internet over the cables Ms. Pasco was talking about to the access points so that the students have sufficient internet coverage to be able to learn. They also set up and maintain all of the server infrastructure at the schools that keeps things running for intercom and other vital life services like that. They do all the additional troubleshooting beyond the network manager level for testing that you see out in the schools. They assist with imaging of computers and all of those type of tier 2, tier 3 troubleshooting services my team helps provide to the students and the teachers and staff at the school. So here are some numbers from my team. We do work 2 ways. We have project-based work, which generally runs on an annual type schedule, and we have ticketed type work for emergencies and things that break. Pre-one-to-one, that year my team did 454 support tickets. As soon as we went one-to-one, that number jumped to almost 3,400. This year we've already resolved a little over 2,800 and are on pace to break 3,500 by the end of the school year. So it's like Jim's team, and like they mentioned, we've had to shift some of our strategy with how we support the different schools and keep things running over this time period with such an increase in workload. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Laura Sawyer.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Laura Sawyer, and I am the Senior Manager of our Instructional Technology team. We also are called InTech. We're here in the district office, so I've actually brought my team with me. If you guys could stand up so you could see the people that do all the work that I'm about to describe to you. We are missing one member, so we have a team of 5 plus me. He's at Davenport Elementary today, training on focused communication, so could not be with us today. I'm extremely proud of this team, thankful every day that I get to come to work with them. They're fantastic and incredibly talented. Since we went one-to-one, the workload has greatly increased for our team. Everything, as you know, now touches technology. Our team is the team that ensures that end users know how to use the technology. For this small team, roughly our work falls into these categories: professional development, managing Schoology, collaborating with teaching and learning and division of schools, and then end user technology support. Before one-to-one, our team was mainly, all we did was technology professional development, and that was limited to school requests. And we had some select teachers, about 1 to 2 per school, that were model instructional classroom teachers or tech coaches. And that was pretty much what we did. We did summer training, we did as requested, training as requested. Schoology was implemented as an emergency response during COVID. After one-to-one, we received the district-wide initiative to adopt Schoology district-wide as our one learning management system. In the first year, we provided required technology teacher PD on our early release days. We had an average attendance for teachers during those days of 5,382 teachers. And again, I want to show you our team. We implemented Flight Academy. We actually write Flight Academy for our students, for our teachers to give to our students, and our students to take that. That's for digital safety, device care, social media, and then there's other things that come from the state that we have to include as well. We also support parents' use of Parent Portal. From June 2021, we had about 21% using Parent Portal. As of this week, I just got the new data, we have 54.5% of our parents using Parent Portal. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer each month. One of the things that our team has been a part of is re-implementing platforms. So what that means is, what we do is we ensure that everyone that supports our teachers have the access to the platforms that they need. For each of the platforms that we re-implement, we have to test, we create documentation, and we look at it from each user's, the end user's point of view. That means we look at it from district staff, admins, teachers, students, and parents. And what does it look like for them? What support do they need to be able to be successful with it? This also includes providing that unified experience across the district, as well as targeted support, because we have a more unified platform. We also create and facilitate professional learning for everything that we use, including those implemented platforms. So one of those that we're going to highlight today is Microsoft. When we've really gone to just that one platform, just using Microsoft as our one way to provide that digital storage, collaboration, and the ability to share documents and other things without having to buy flash drives or have multiple emailed copies so that nobody really knows which copy is the right copy. We can use a collaborative copy, and everybody has the most current one all the time. Microsoft is also integrated with Schoology, so teachers can give assignments and projects, and it's all saved right in their OneDrive, so it's a seamless process for them. Schoology was re-implemented. We did use it for that emergency COVID response, and then once we got back, everybody said we don't have to use Schoology. But now we're one-to-one, so we need to have that one unified platform so that students can get their work digitally. They can turn in their work digitally. So the expectation is everybody uses Schoology across the district. And that includes staff members, so all of the professional development, all of the departments, we've helped them all move over to using Schoology as a way to receive their professional learning, not to mention curriculum resources, learning materials, information for parents. All of that can go into Schoology, and our team helps whatever department needs help using that to be successful with that as well. I'm going to skip the video real quick because I know that we've been here for a little while, but in your PowerPoint, you'll see it just shows the experience and what does it look like when a teacher, a student, and a parent can see Looks in Schoology. The short version is students and teachers use it through ClassLink, parents use it through Parent Portal. And we provide support on how do parents get in there. All right, we've had several new implementations that our team this year has also worked on. The first is Classmate. We are very proud of that because that is developed in-house by the IST, by one specific IST programmer, but we've also partnered and helped share things that we'd like to see. We've also partnered with the PBIS team because this Classmate provides that positive school climate that school administrators can set school-wide goals, and parents can view how their students are doing through Parent Portal. That is going to be rolled out. We did a pilot this year. It will be rolled out district-wide next year. Focus Communication is our one district-wide communication tool for K through 12. It was a pilot again this year as well, and we'll do a full rollout next year. Again, parents view it through Parent Portal. So we've really put a lot of emphasis on trying to help our parents get into Parent Portal because so many resources are available there. Oops, I'm so sorry. Okay, just two more. Technology professional learning. The first year we went one-to-one. Like I said, we did have those required professional learning days. We didn't have that this year. They were not provided to us. So instead, our team offered 2 to 4 webinars every day throughout first semester. We offered 285 sessions from August to December. 285. That was a lot. We were very tired too, but we did it. In addition, we offered more than 20 days of virtual open house for various things, including the last week of May, we'll have another set of virtual open office hours. So anybody who needs help with technology that week, they just click the link and they're talking to one of the members of my team. We instituted individualized support through bookings, and then we still continue to work with specific groups like our secretaries, our federal programs, therapists, assistive technologies, just to name a few. We go in and we train them on any kind of initiative that we're working through. Finally, this is a partial list of our additional special projects that we worked on this year. One of the significant projects that we did was early in the year, and that was creating those curriculum portals so that all teachers go to the same place to get their curriculum. All district leaders can go and see where are we supposed to be when they walk through those classrooms. So it gives us a unified experience as well. And the last thing I'm going to say is that in addition to the professional learning and support, InTech, I'm going to point out one more time, this team has now received about 3,500 tickets. As of yesterday, it was 3,476 tickets just this school year that we also do in addition to all of those other things. So we're a tiny department that does a lot of things to support our one-to-one initiative.
Thank you very much. Board members, I'll pause for a moment to see if there's any questions or comments.
I'd like to say I did my part in helping to make up for the number of students who do not require repairs to their computer.
There are no further questions or comments. Thank you all very much. Board members, the next item also belongs within Ms. Pasco's purview, and this relates to a 3-year subscription to LineWise School Manager. So Ms. Pasco will briefly summarize that for you here today.
Yes, sir, I will. So when we talk about LineWise, this is a company we've actually done business with before. They had our classroom management program that we use in the secondary schools for our laptops. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as that's still part of the initiative that we're doing now. So they have 3 pillars that they look at. prevention and enablement, which is really looking at classroom management. So teachers being able to see what students are doing on their devices while they're teaching without interrupting that learning cycle. Early detection and prevention, this is where we're looking at our filter and what are students able to get to, what are they not? And as we know, this is a requirement of some of our funding as well and state law. And then additionally, looking at the reporting piece that we have that we currently use Gaggle for. So I'm going to go through these three very quickly and tell you what each component does. School manager, which is our filter, lets us essentially look at agents on our devices and then cloud software that we can say at a high school level, students can see a little more than they can at an elementary level, just as you would expect. And filters are important. They're required by COPPA and by SIPA to ensure that we are managing what students are seeing that is age appropriate, which is a state federal law, and it ties to all of our funding as well. The piece here that's very important is it functions on both our Apple and our PC devices. It's also integrated with Focus, so that's important for us to be able to implement it quickly. And it has AI and machine learning proxy and VPN control. So what that means is, as we all know, one of the prerequisites of learning is to be curious. And anytime you're told not to do something, you become curious and you want to find a way around it. So we're constantly trying to make sure that we limit that curiosity a little bit. And with AI, we have to be very smart with that. So this platform lets us do that and really manage what are students trying to get out to, what do we want them to get out to, what do we not, as AI comes down the pike. It also gives us some Google and YouTube granular controls. So what that means by that is YouTube already has controls, but this lets us get very, very granular. If we have YouTube blocked in a building because a principal has requested it, but there is a specific YouTube video a teacher wants a student to see, we can unblock that for them. So it gives the teacher a lot more granular control on what they can do. Class-wise, as you can see the picture right here, this is really for the secondary level, and this is what lets teachers manage what students are doing on their devices. Again, remember that balance. Students become curious, they want to look for other things, and the teacher's trying to manage them and keep them really focused in the content that they're looking at. So what this platform does is it does give the teacher a live view of what's happening, but the one I really like is the teacher-to-student chat. So, you know, I'll just take my opportunity to pick on Mr. Hyde for a minute. Maybe I was teaching and he just wasn't quite focused. Instead of calling him out in front of everybody and not getting him engaged anymore, I could just send him a little chat and say, Mr. Hyde, you know, kind of can we focus on this for a minute? So it lets teachers look at it that way. And it honors the student-teacher relationship because we all need that redirection sometimes. It also minimizes the distractions, make sure they can set it per class, so it's not set by the whole year. They also don't have to come to us and ask for anything to be set, and they have a little bit more control over what they're doing. The monitor piece, so this is the piece that we currently have Gaggle for. I'm going to talk about the proof of concept we've done. Captain Shea could not be here today, but he was part of that proof of concept with us, and we were very interested in what we found when we did the proof of concept. But this has the same type of monitoring support that Gaggle does. It's live support. Someone is actually looking at the issues that come through, and they're responding to those so that we have that extra component of help with us. They are looking at the whole screen. So in other words, they're not just looking at one thing a student might put in a OneDrive. They're looking holistically at what the student is doing. A good example would be To Kill a Mockingbird. That always raises a red flag because it has the word to kill in it. So you kind of need some contextual cues about that, and you have to code the system differently so that doesn't give false positives about somebody trying to go out and do something dangerous. They have 7 different categories, but they're also categories that we can tailor. We work with Safe Schools, we work with the company, and we tailor these alerts for what we need for our system here in Polk County. The pilot program that we've done, as we've talked before, it's always best practice to do a pilot before you jump in, especially with a district this size. The one that we've done is we've done all 3 products. We did it at a middle school. Middle schools tend to be our highest volume of things in these areas. No negative feedback about class-wide, all positive feedback from teachers, and we had no hiccups during state testing. So that's a very important time to make sure that we can work well. The school manager product, that's our filtering product, and we found that it was more successful with proxy sites than our current solution, so obviously we want to move to that. And then our monitor component captured 34 events at a level 3 or higher. These are levels that we work in with Safe Schools. In fact, that meeting is to be held this week to determine the new levels. And the 4s and 5s are reported directly to Safe Schools. 1s, 2, and 3s are reported within Polk County. They do have a data privacy certification, so we insured for that. And last but not least, you heard Dr. Laura Sawyer talk about Parent Portal. This also has a component we've been looking for, which is a parent app. So the parents actually can monitor what their students are doing on the devices outside of the school day. They can have that app. It will feed through Parent Portal. Additionally, I did not bring all the information with me, but this company does also offer some extra filtering licenses for parents for them to use on their own personal devices, and we'll be able to share that information as well. So it helps us with our parent engagement. I think I went through pretty quickly. What questions or the most important piece that I didn't tell you, $2 million savings to Polk County by streamlining with one platform for the next 3 years.
Mr. Sharpless?
I just want to say, first, as a former teacher and as a parent, I think the monitoring is critical to know when students are on task and off task. When you're one-to-one devices, students can be in all sorts of things. So I think that's important. You mentioned the savings. My question is just simply, is this competitive? Is this I'm not in the IT world, so I don't know. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Is this a competitive cost? And why you chose this specific company versus others that may be in the realm of this?
Multiple reasons. So it is competitive. Prior to going one-to-one for these components, we had 3 different vendors. So one, if you have 3 different vendors, that's triplicate work on your IT staff, and we want to minimize that as much as possible. So these 3 programs all work together. They're all from the same company. This company has been on site with us numerous times troubleshooting. I actually happened to talk to the founder of one of the platforms 2 or 3 times a week via cell. So they're very accessible. They respond to our needs. They will modify for whatever we need. We actually have one of their representatives here in the audience with us today. When we ask for a request, they've come on site and worked with us with the engineers and modified the program for our needs. The money was extremely competitive. We were not sure we were going to be able to go to one system for 3, and they did bring us a quote that was a third to a half less than anybody else. For instance, last year, you'll look at board docs, we paid $448,000 for 1 year for a filter. We'll be paying a little over $1 million for 3 years for all 3 products. So it was extremely competitive.
Thank you.
Dr. Allen?
Thank you, Superintendent. Appreciate you having your team with you today. It was really good.
They're a great team.
Yeah, a lot of good data there. So line-wise, can you speak to that a little bit more? Because obviously this is a feature that, I'm sure that we have all heard from parents wanting to have more access to parental controls on devices and so forth. So is it for Apple and our Windows devices? And then how, because I'm trying to look at the imagery in this line-wise section to understand what that would look like in the front-end side for parents.
So LineWise is the company. So Custodio is the parent portal part. Is that the one you're looking at? Is that the one you're asking about, Parent Portal directly? Yes. Yes, it'll be on Apple and PC for both of them. And so what we'll do is we obviously have to get the product up and running over the summer, and then we'll be working on the parent components. We'll have parent tutorials. We'll have all those pieces, send those out so that parents know how to use that. And they'll have more ability to set controls for their students and see what their students are doing without having to ask us.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, definitely. Was wanting to know what those features are. You've got 3 images here. Is this an app-based that a parent would be downloading on their device?
This is an app that's on their phone, so it's letting them see location of where the device is if they're not with the student. They can put daily time limits on, so they can say, I don't want you on the device after 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, and they can control that, and then they can also see their screen time that their student is doing. So it gives the parent a lot of power on that device.
All right, very good. Much needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pasco. There are no further questions or comments. Board members, the next item before you is Mr. Chad Davis, and and it relates to proposed school board policies, along with Teresa. I apologize.
Good afternoon, board members, Superintendent Hyde. So we have 10 policies that I'm bringing before you today, which is the smallest group that I brought in a while, so hopefully you guys appreciate that. And I just want to preface this by saying that in March, we had the special work session where we brought a large group of policies to you, and the goal was we were trying to get caught up on policies that were outdated. And so today is the final large group of policies that we're bringing to try to get up to date. And then because next month, Neola will put out an update based off this most recent legislative session, where we'll have to start working to update prior to that. So we're in a good place now where all of the policies have come to you for first reading at least, and they'll work through the process for public hearing and to be voted on. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. The first policy that we're bringing is policy 2423, which is our school to work program. And the main revision to this policy specifies that unpaid students interning or getting workplace experience as part of an education program are considered employees of the district as far as workers' compensation is concerned. And it also incorporates provisions for Senate Bill 240, which requires that school boards ensure that students enrolled in grades 9 through 12 have at least one work-based learning opportunity. Policy 5410.01 is our promotion, acceleration, placement, and retention policy. And this policy is a complete redraft because there's multiple statutory changes that occurred over the past few years that we needed to get up to date on. And so Neola's recommendation was just to rewrite this policy to comply with all of those. So you'll see House Bill 7071 is from the 2019 legislative session.
Ms. Griffin, just pause for one moment.
I'm sorry.
Board members, just so you know, you're going to have intermittent access to files and information at this point. We seem to be having either difficulty with board docs explicitly or with the internet, more than likely related to the storm that just passed through. So some of you may have the files already open on your desktop as it relates to policies. I'm just speaking because I know at least I could not. And then I received at least one other text from board members saying they couldn't access the data. So just wanted you to be aware of that. But it is there, it is attached. Ask you to do a refresh and you should be able to locate the information. Go ahead, Ms. Griffin, apologize.
Thank you. House Bill 7071 is from the 2019 legislative session, which added requirements for middle school students being promoted to high school. Then Senate Bill 1048 designated the end-of-year progress monitoring assessment as the statewide standardized ELA assessment for students in grade 3 through 10, and then the mathematics for students in grades 3 through 8. Senate Bill 240 and House Bill 7039, which are both from 2023 legislative session, added changes related to substantial reading and or mathematics deficiencies, individualized progress monitoring plans, course requirements for middle school and higher, and then high school graduation requirements, career planning, acceleration, all of that. Policy 5830 is our student fundraising policy, and this policy included providing parameters for crowdsourced fundraising, which just comply with our crowdsource policy that we already have. And it also has options for the sale of food and beverage items consumed on campus. 7440.01 is our video surveillance and electronic monitoring policy, and it's being revised to include parents' right to give consent in writing before a school employee makes a video or audio recording of their child. And it's also revised for the district to use pre-recorded lessons or observations of virtual learning sessions as part of an employee's evaluations in accordance with any CBAs or MOUs that are approved by the board. Policy 8405 is our school safety and security policy, which is being revised to incorporate changes in House Bill 1421, which is just related to the health, safety, and welfare of students. And also House Bill 542, which just changes our threat assessment teams are now being referred to as threat management teams. So you'll see those changes in that policy as well. our public complaints policy, policy 9130. It's a simple change that says that it clarifies that school library materials, challenges to those materials extends to classroom libraries. So you'll just literally see the word classroom added to that policy. Policy 9160 is our public attendance at school events, and it includes provisions from House Bill 319, which prohibits interference or disruption of a sporting or entertainment event. And those interferences are defined in legislation and subject to criminal prosecution. Policy 9200 is our volunteers policy, and it's provisions based on Senate Bill 2524 that addresses background screening and rescreening requirements. And I don't know if you guys remember a couple months ago, or last month, time flies, last month, we brought several human resource policies to you, and they address like background screening for those employees. It's the same statute, the same bill that applies to this policy for volunteers, which will go through the Care Provider Screening Act, Care Provider Screening Clearinghouse, starting January 1, 2025. So it's the same requirements that were in the policies that we already brought before you. And there's also changes in that policy for our retiree volunteer program. Those changes staff has already implemented. Our policy is now just being updated to reflect those required changes. The final two policies before you today, policy 9211, which is guidelines for external and internal support organizations. So that's like our booster clubs and school organizations. And the revisions to this policy are just intended to more clearly distinguish between school-based and outside support organizations. And there's revised language that allows the school district to just more closely monitor these organizations. And policy 9215, our direct support organizations, modified statutory provisions in Senate Bill 1278, which includes requirements related to contracts between the board and direct support organizations. There's some audit requirements, the prohibition on the board permitting the use of property, facilities, personal services by any organization that does not provide equal opportunity, employment opportunities that are consistent with any state and federal laws. So those are all the policies before you guys today. If you have any questions about those, I can answer them.
Mr. Sharpless?
Sure. I can't pull up the policies in front of me, but I have my notes from when I was reading them. So you're just going to have to kind of work with me here. So all of mine are from the 9,000 level, I guess, or whatever. 9,200. I have a note here that says D, no more than 20% question mark. So I'm wondering if there was this part in there, what part I was referencing there, but there was a question I had. There was a list of things. One of them was D. I mean, it's just hard because Board Docs isn't working.
Yeah,
I'm
so
trying my
that's
best.
part of our, the volunteer portion of, the retiree volunteer portion of that policy. So it says the number of volunteer hours per week, including training hours that the retiree volunteer may provide, is no more than 20% of the number of hours that the retiree volunteer was expected to work per week before the date of their retirement.
So is that state mandated, I'm assuming? Okay, that makes no sense to me. That we're limiting it to 20%. Yeah, it's better than it was, but still.
I believe that's actually an IRS issue.
Okay.
Because there has to be a bona fide separation from employment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a little strict, but since
That's not us.
it's not us, so that's fine. The other two I have are, it's kind of a question to address two different policies, 9211 and 9215, both of them, about the outside organizations. And this is a question, maybe Superintendent Hyde could answer this, I'm not sure. I'm just wondering if its organization is not part of our school system, their outside organization, where do we get the authority to require audits of them and things like that if it's not direct, if they're not directly reporting to us? When the policies, it says that we can require, there's a whole list of things that we can require from them. And I was just wondering, where do we get that authority? Like, is that?
From the simple fact that if you want to partner with Polk County Public Schools, we're going to request certain information. That's again, the policy is we can request that information. It doesn't say we will. It's going to vary depending on the organization. If there's a financial link to an organization, For example, if we're providing some support for tutoring or other types of services, which we do have multiple outside organizations within Polk County that we do partner with, we have every right to request an assurance through a financial audit or other types of audits to ensure that our dollars are being utilized in the manner in which we expected those dollars to be utilized. So please keep in mind, this is more of a comprehensive policy.
Okay.
It's not necessarily going to be required of every party, but it is, we will determine which one depending on the type of relationship we have with the organization.
I was just thinking like, yeah, absolutely. If we're giving money to an organization, I can understand that. I was just thinking like if there's a group of people that got together, they raise money for a scholarship for a student and they give it to the student, like, it says boosters here, so that could be something like that too. And I was just wondering where we got that authority to do
Part
that.
of this too, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Davis, also stems from a lot of questions regarding our ability to audit parent organizations as well. And the previous policy was very broad. We do have every right, again, to go back and request certain information, because what we had organizations that were trying to operate outside of standard procedures, and not have to track the dollars, not have to track other things. And respectfully, we're going to be ultimately held responsible for that lack of transparency. So I believe, if I'm correct, Mr. Davis, that this part of this stemmed from that interaction with that Warren organization in the past, where we're helping to clarify further what the expectations are with these partnerships. I'll give you an example. You have a welding class or welding program at Roosevelt. If that welding program parents decide they're going to put together their own organization and that they're going to funnel dollars and expect title dollars to be supplementing that program, this is a good example because this happens all the time, and yet they want to be able to have their own decision-making authority without the school being involved, that's a no. Because while it's an outside organization, we still have the right and we still have the authority to supervise that. Respectfully, there's no inherent limitation here. There's nothing punitive towards organizations. It's simply a matter of ensuring that the district stays informed. Everyone involved operates with a high level of transparency, and that we have the ability to audit as needed. Because unfortunately, much like with the old ticket sales, that's always an area that comes under question with auditors. You know, as far as the accounting and where those dollars go and how they're being utilized and by whom and in what manner, what's the voting process. So there's a lot more to this than just what's on the surface here. So the question's a great question, but I'm just trying to give you as many examples as I possibly can to help explain why the rationale behind that language.
That would
Mr.
be
Davis, am I incorrect? I mean, I don't think I'm far off the mark here.
Yes, and I know in our conversations, there are some certain requirements for this when it comes to how we handle our finances, but some of these organizations are raising money in our name. They're fundraising, saying this money is going to come benefit the students, and then we're finding out like their officers are using it to buy lavish meals when they have their board meetings, things like that. So when they're using our name and they're representing to the public, they're raising money to benefit the schools, benefit the students, supplement our programs, then that's where we come in to make sure that that money actually is going in that direction. But I believe there are some accounting requirements that we're trying to follow here too. I don't think it's all just so that we can monitor everything, but also I think we're required to, if we allow them to have certain access and depending on how they're partnering with us. That may be a good question though for our auditor who worked on this policy, because she's the one who directed us on the options we chose.
So it sounds like if they're partnering with us, that's where we have the authority, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
It's contractual as much as anything. There's not an inherent right for any group to come in and operate in our name and for these purposes. This is something that we consent to, and one of the conditions to that consent is that we need reasonable assurances that you're doing what you say you're going to do. You'll know periodically, from time to time, you'll see a rather sensational or spectacular headline in national news about the treasurer of a parent organization who made off with $300,000 and went to Brazil. Whatever. This is designed to stop that from happening, or to keep it from happening as much as possible. It's just, most of the time, we're talking about honest people, good-hearted people doing great things for students. But sometimes you have to help keep the honest people honest.
And I understand that. I just was wanting to some clarity, and I thank you all for giving me that clarity.
Was that the last one, Mr. Sharpless? Just want to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's the last one.
Perfect. I see no further questions or comments regarding those policies up. Dr. Allen?
Sorry, again, Board Docs is not accessible, so can't really address anything too, precisely. But I did want to draw attention to, I know that you had coupled the procedure as it relates to the action item that's on the agenda for tonight, as it relates to trying to build something procedurally with future appointments as it relates to the emeriti.
That's attached for this evening because that's.
Is that, okay, I thought it was in this item.
These are new policies that the board
Yep.
hasn't addressed, if I recall correctly. And so the emeritus designation and the procedure we would adhere to has been linked to the board meeting for this evening, sir.
Okay, I can't see it. I thought it was existing in this agenda
It is
item.
in there too. I don't know if we also
Okay.
need to move it, because it was a part of this item, but just in the executive content for you guys.
That's where
to
I
see.
saw
Is
it.
that where you
Yep.
saw it?
Mhm.
But if I need to move it somewhere, okay. Okay.
And to clarify, because it's really, it could be a very, very brief procedural review. Essentially, it is restricted and limited to both Travis and Ridge Technical Vocational Colleges alone, and their respective staff. It does identify specific criterion for staff who can be considered. It provides no benefits, no authority beyond just the designation and the title alone. So it's a very straightforward procedure.
Yep.
And we did a lot of research looking at how college universities currently use that process. We did mirror some and tailor some of our procedures after the criterion, what would qualify someone for that designation or for staff to come forward and make a recommendation. However, outside of that, again, it provides no benefit, no rights, no privileges thereto for forever and ever, amen.
Yep. And I think when I read it, it applied to staff. And, I think when we were discussing it during our work session last time, that designation was specific to the administrator, the director. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So the procedure you have is, so now you can then, the SAC potentially could vote an instructor from Travis or Ridge as emeriti.
If those conditions are met, criterion are met, yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay, so I just want to clarify on that one. Secondly, I don't know if this is a good place. I know I reached out to Mr. Bridges to speak to this a bit because I know it's been a part of our conversation as well as we go through the rulemaking process. We've made some changes. So I think, thank you for sending that document out. We have it now in written form. But if we can speak to it, now I think would be a good time because as we're about to go through the agenda review, because we do have items on the agenda tonight in public hearing, but they're in a non-voting capacity. So maybe speak to that, Mr. Bridges.
I'd be happy to. The question had to do with traditionally, we've had public hearings for the approval or to receive input on proposed policies, and the board has immediately voted to approve or disapprove those policies right after the public hearing. And recently, it became apparent that we had an area in our policy that could be improved to meet the needs of the current board. It was specifically asked, when do board members have the opportunity to ask questions, make suggestions, propose amendments to those policies? And we didn't really have it built in. So we did a look around and found best practices throughout the state that vary, but there are many districts that bifurcate the vote to approve a new policy from the public hearing. And what that does essentially is allows the board, the period after the public hearing during your comments, to consider things that have been raised during public comment and additional concerns, considerations that board members have. And if there are no changes, then it would be placed on the next board meeting for a vote. If there are changes, those amendments could be incorporated and brought back for a later vote. And the public still will have another opportunity to speak, because it would be an item on the agenda at the following board meeting, so they would have their opportunity to speak at that board meeting as well. It adds transparency, but it gives the board members a defined opportunity to discuss and suggest and amend.
Do you have specific questions about policy, or?
Well, yes, but I can't give, there's no links available.
Okay. We can come back to this topic, because I can definitely cover the next one while we wait. I know Ms. Pasco and the team are on hold right now with board docs to determine what the issue is. It's just, right now, everything else is operational. The internet's fine, emails are operating fine. It's, for whatever reason, board docs is having a glitch. So unless anybody else has specific questions they'd like to ask right now about policy, I'll table this for a moment. We'll come back to it. So if you all stay close, don't run off yet. And I'll go ahead and transition into the final item for the superintendent's report, and that is on the high school update. So board members, as you recall, we had received a P3 proposal. In accordance with Florida statute, we required upon receipt of a P3 proposal, and if we're ultimately going to consider that proposal, we have to legally advertise it for a minimum of 21 days. We did post that opportunity out. It closes officially today at close of business. So as of today, just to keep the board up to speed, we have received 3 additional inquiries. Now, again, that number might increase. If it does, at the end of the day today, I'll inform the board. There are 3 other companies who have inquired. They have not necessarily submitted a proposal. I can actually state that affirmatively, more affirmatively. They have not submitted a proposal. What they have done is indicated an interest, and we have then communicated to them what the criterion are. Please recall that when we established this and we were going to go out for an RFP or ITN, whichever designation you prefer, the requirements were going to be, you must have X number of student seats. It must be within a certain mile radius of the current vicinity that we're looking at. It must include land acquisition as part of the proposal. It must also include turfing of fields, and it must also meet the programmatic needs of that particular school, the academies and/or workforce career tech ed development aspects and program needs that we would have. So simply saying, what that essentially does is it's going to limit or restrict an outside vendor from saying, well, we built a high school in District XYZ last year, we're just going to submit that. Absolutely not. We don't want to waste our team's time. We don't want to waste their time by reviewing something that ultimately is not going to meet our needs. And it's going to belabor this issue even further. With the rapid growth that we've experienced, this is obviously something crucial and critical to our needs, that we move this process forward in a fair and consistent manner. So again, we've adhered to the statutory requirements. Those organizations have been communicated with, they've been given or are receiving those specifications. Anyone else who submits will also receive those same specifications. They'll also be issued an abbreviated timeline in which they must provide a response. Then what will happen, and I'll give you 2 scenarios, board members. Let's assume no one else moves forward. Then based off the current P3 proposal, I will come before the board and make a recommendation. The second option is we get 2 or more submissions, meaning we already have one P3 submission, someone else submits a proposal. We will then compare the 2, and I will make a recommendation to the board. And so the board will receive this in June, no later than the June meeting. And so we look forward to being able to kind of bring this issue to rest and be able to give you the best possible opportunities. Please understand that when I bring a recommendation to the board, if the board subsequently approves that without any further questions or directives, that means we are then entering into the design phase. The proposal is one piece as far as classroom seats and the programmatic needs and those types of things. That does not mean that we've received architectural drawings. We've received maybe some schematics, we've received some general drawings and things that would show us what the school might be configured like. Our team still has to become involved to review it, to ensure it meets SREF standards and everything else that we require, not only at the state and federal level, but more importantly, what our Polk County standard has become. And then obviously as we go through the design phase, that gets concluded and we move the process forward. Very similar to what we did with Scenic Terrace, just a different process because the P3 proposal is a little bit different. There will ultimately be Mr. Pitts has been working directly with outside counsel that we've retained specific to this matter because they have a great deal of experience. The board will receive a policy update as well, specific to P3 proposals and how it'll outline exactly the process should we ever receive a P3 submission again in the future. And my understanding is the only other district that I'm aware of at this time who has a procedure, or excuse me, a policy in place is Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So we will then join them with having an explicit policy and then subsequently procedures to support this initiative moving forward. So that is the high school update. Any questions? Oh, yes. Was that Ms. White? Was that a carryover from the last one? I apologize.
I think so.
Okay. Ms. Cunningham.
Thank you so much. First of all, let me thank you for placing this on the agenda today. I know I called this morning and it wasn't on there, and I was like, wait a minute, I think we're supposed to talk about
My
this
error. Yes, ma'am.
today. So thank you for being so kind and placing it on our agenda for discussion. Number one, the update is very important. Number two, I don't want to lose the folks that are interested in this proposal to be able to go forward, because I think what they did with Scenic Terrace was unbelievable and such a wonderful, wonderful facility. So they're a tried and true, while the policies and procedures, we might be putting in writing the work that they do and what they stand by, to me, is second to none. So I'm very excited that we're finally moving forward. So you have said that tonight that closes. You kept telling us May 14th, and here we are. So then will somebody email us or something tomorrow morning and say there's a close of business on the 14th? We have X, okay, we'll do that. All right.
If not tomorrow, it'll be this evening during the meeting. I'll receive updates because we've
Okay.
been messaging about
Okay,
this.
that'd be great.
I'll provide you with a list of the companies who've shown an interest.
Yes.
And then hopefully, if not by Friday, in the Friday update that I typically send the board, I will tell you if any of those parties, when contacted, continue to show an interest in providing a submission. Because again, the timeline can change depending on whether or not someone actually submits a proposal. Being interested in inquiring of it does not necessarily mean they're going to submit.
Submit. And is there a deadline for someone else to submit?
There is, and Mr. Pitts,
What is that?
you'll please come down. Mr. Pitts, remind me, I don't know if it's 14 days or 21 days again, but I think it's 14.
Thank you, sir. Sorry. Just wanting to be clear as I follow this process.
What I'd like to do is hand each of you the solicitation that's going to show what that process, that detailed process is.
Okay.
That's also going to go out to the folks that have shown interest.
Oh.
It establishes a pre-conference. We have a pre-bid conference for those that are showing interest to come and make sure they understand what that proposal looks like and answer any questions before they submit their final submission. I'll say their final submission.
Okay.
And that final submission is due the first week of June.
The first week of June?
Yes.
Okay, couple weeks, really? Okay. So,
Because we ask a lot of questions.
I understand.
We ask a lot of
So, based on what you get tonight, if no one else submits, the one company moves forward into the June board meeting for approval, or we still have to go through this by June 1? I'm not clear.
If we don't get an indication that anyone else who's already been an interested party
Yes.
is going to submit an application and a proposal,
Yes.
then I will be moving forward with the board in June.
Okay, but if I'm an interested party, what am I doing and what's my deadline?
So the interested party will be communicating with Mr. Pitts and Mr. Fix to get the specification details that I've already outlined.
Yes, by when, though?
And then the deadline for those are when, Mr. Pitts?
That's my question.
June 4th,
June 4th.
for them to submit their entire proposal.
I got it. So really, you can't tell us anything till June 4th. So it probably wouldn't be on the June,
Unless we receive confirmation from the interested parties that they will not be submitting.
Yes.
I can then apprise you of that, absolutely.
okay, that,
I can, either way, I will apprise the board of the status of the companies that have shown an interest.
perfect. Thank you. That's what I'm asking.
Absolutely.
And then depending on when and the timing, it would come back to us either for a vote on the June board meeting, or it would be pushed back and it could be later than that.
I intend to bring it in the June board meeting.
Either way.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the update. Very important.
Mr. Sharpless.
That was my question. Is it going to be back-to-back then, work session and board meeting, or is this the work session now?
It will be back to back.
Okay, thank you.
And I know Ms. Wyatt we're going back, so Ms. Wyatt had indicated Board Docs is operational, so if you refresh your screen, you can see the policy updates again. So Ms. Griffin, Mr. Davis, you please join us again. Ms. Wyatt.
Thank you. And this is probably slightly less about the policy other than it is a policy that we are currently looking at. The volunteer policy, which was
9,200?
9,200. Just below where the changes have been made, the applicants are required every 5 years, which we had discussed a few years back, at a cost determined by the board. That price I know originally was set and we had a donor to cover it. Is that still continuing? Has that changed where, or if somebody were to go get a background check today, is that something that they're paying for out of pocket?
I am not aware of any donors right now that cover the costs for background checks for volunteers. We have come up with some ideas conceptually based off changes to the Florida statute requirements for volunteer background checks that we will be bringing, once the policy is affirmed. I will then work with several organizations to determine whether or not they will help offset funding for the background checks and screenings for our volunteers. But right now, there is nothing, we don't work with anyone presently that I'm aware of. I'm getting an affirmation from Ms. Crowley that that's the case, so to cover those costs.
And it's $25?
It will not be. It is much more expensive at the next level.
Okay. So that's something that's coming back before the board, since it says in here it's determined by the board?
The board doesn't, well, it's an interesting question. I don't know quite how to answer that because I don't know that the board is going to make a decision. The board will have to determine whether or not we will expect volunteers to cover the full cost of their background checks, especially, and there's a lot of reasons why the board may choose to do that. The board may opt to somehow supplement that through parental engagement funds or other types of dollars that we do have available and might be flexible to allow that. Or option number 3, as I mentioned, we will look to solicit funds from some of our current partnership organizations to see if they will offset the costs of the background checks and screenings.
Okay, but that will come before the board.
But the cost is set. That's, I want to make sure I clarify that the cost is set. We don't negotiate the cost of the background check.
Correct, but when we approved it originally, I think it was 25, but at that time, there was a donor that was covering it for the first year. I'm sorry, I'm looking at Jeanette just because I know she was here when it happened. But so I was just curious on an update, as I know that it looks like the price will be changing, so. But it does say in policy that comes before the board, so I just want to make sure we'll have a conversation about that as it is.
Yeah, we'll share the costs associated with it, and then the board will have to make a decision ultimately if they want it in policy, as far as if the board's going to commit themselves to covering any portion of that cost. That's for the board to decide. But
so is that something that should come before us this summer?
If I may, I have some background information I can share a little bit on that. We had a meeting with Chancellor Burns to talk about how this is going to roll out with the ACA Clearinghouse. And they are not quite sure yet either how this is going to work. We will be having training this summer is all we were promised. They are aware that there are some significant costs associated with the increase to the level 2 background check. But they've also said that there probably will be the elimination of the requirement for a 5-year renewal because the clearinghouse instantaneously updates criminal background information, whereas before we would not know that. So every 5 years we'd have to do another background check. So that would be one cost that would conceivably could be eliminated. They also are looking into what ways they might be able to help us with costs. He did not give us any specifics on that. I imagine that since ACA will be covering all of this, if they are receiving additional funding, that may change what the cost would be for the school district. Since we are being required to do this, we don't have the option of choosing how we go about it. But that's a conversation that is going on. So I don't know if it'll be this summer that we can talk about actual costs or if it'll be a little bit later, but it is an ongoing conversation at the state level.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm on the record that I do not support charging people to help volunteer in our schools for the background check. So whatever we can do as a district to make sure that it is easy as possible for volunteers to help us. I know that there's a lot of families it makes volunteering in their child's classroom unattainable. So whatever we can do to keep that
Yeah, it's
free.
right now, if I recall correctly, the level background check that we would have to conduct, I believe, is minimally is $75. I don't know that I would agree with the state that it shouldn't have to be renewed quite frankly, I'm not comfortable with a 5-year renewal. I'd much prefer a 3-year renewal at best, given the fact that we're not dealing in manufacturing widgets, we're dealing with kids. The $75 ensures that they get fingerprinted and it ensures that they get screened in the national database. And then we do receive regular updates for a specified period of time. The cost is the cost. I don't disagree. We've had concerns from this inception of this bill that it would price certain volunteers out of our organization, which is why we have already worked to identify several partners who we may be able to work with to offset these costs. When we started to have these conversations with other school districts, just to make you aware of what we were actually told, we were told, well, if you guys figure out a way to fund the background checks, we're just going to funnel all our volunteers to Polk County. No, you're not. So we will have to put some restrictions in for volunteering in Polk County. And I think that's why I'm a little reluctant to answer this question here. I think we need a little bit more dialogue about this, and allow me some time to get some insight from each of you, and bring it back to workshop this specifically. So I'm not, you know me. Typically, I'm quick with an answer. This one, I'm a little hesitant and reluctant to comment on until we can solidify some of the potential resources to offset the cost. Because trust me, from day one, we, as a team, have had concerns that this would eliminate volunteering for many of our retirees, for families, Title I families, Title I eligible families. We share the same concern. And we would hate for this to become, in many of our schools, in particular, elementary schools require them to be certified as volunteers, even to do field trips. So now you're compounding the issue with $75 to get certified and cleared as a volunteer, and then whatever the field trips costs are for your child and those types of things. So we don't want to create a hardship. So I'd like to bring this back to the board with some recommendations and suggestions.
Thank you. And if you could also get us what the last cost approved by the board was, because I know it's been done within the past 3 to 5 years, I believe.
So right now, the cost for volunteers is $40, and the volunteer pays $25, and the district's paying $15.
Okay. Thank you.
That's where we are right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Allen?
Yeah, my question was on our previous agenda item as it related to the high school update.
Go ahead, sir.
I was just curious, so the deadline that's today was just for the RFI, which was a request for inquiry, right? Was there an official document that they had to submit, or is it just an inquiry?
There is, and it's just an inquiry.
Okay.
And so many of them were seeking clarification on the process. As Mr. Pitts pointed out, part of the clarification on the posting was some may have been confused that just to submit a new proposal, that they may have a fee associated with that. If you recall, for the P3 proposals on an initial submission, we require a fee of minimally of $25,000 to offset the cost of our staff having to review something that we didn't request, right? I mean, you're taking them away from other duties because you chose to submit something. Fine, we've worked through that now twice. We needed to provide some clarification because additional parties that have come and inquired were initially under the impression that they too would have to submit the $25,000. That's not the case. We're now comparing any other subsequent submissions to what we've already received. So that's part of the additional timeline there as well, is to allow us time to clarify that and request those submissions formally. But the only thing that's happened so far has been an inquiry, a request for information. What are you looking for? What are the specifications? What are the requirements? And then they ultimately get to decide whether or not they're going to submit a proposal.
Yeah. Okay.
But what this did do is it prevented a cookie cutter approach where some other entity could say, again, we built this school, let's just dump this and say, this is our proposal. That's why we were so specific about the additional requirements in this project.
Mm-hmm.
I see no further questions or comments on either item. Since we partnered those together effectively, thank you both. Staff and district updates under budget and staffing. Board members, unfortunately, it would appear that board docs is locked up again. Mr. Chair, we've been at this now 2 hours, and it's typically time where I would ask for a break. Could we take a quick 10 or 15-minute recess? Mr. Pitts can come back up. Sorry, Jason. But let's see if we can get, well, I respectfully, I want them to be able to see the information you're about to present in the PowerPoint slides. So if we could, Mr. Chair, I'd like to request a 15-minute recess to see if we can't get board docs back up.
All right.
At this time, I'd like to call this work session back to order on this fine afternoon. Not sure how the weather's out there right now, but it seems much quieter for sure. So I'll just turn this back over to Superintendent, and you can guide us through the rest of it.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to invite Jason Pitch, Chief of Staff, forward. He has one brief update change under the staff and district updates.
Good afternoon, board members. Let me move. Good afternoon, sir. Well, thank you. Let me move this slideshow along here. Attached to board docs was an executive summary of what's being requested today. That is to upgrade or fund upgrade the director position at Polk Education Foundation, PEF, from a director to a senior director. As you remember, a couple months ago, you saw an updated job description that the superintendent, along with some of their board members, had worked on. That went out to market, and it's obvious that this director salary is not attracting many applicants. So that is the request. It would be about an $18,000, $19,000 cost in total, guessing on what level a person might come in on. And there's still discussions going on, and Mr. Hyde might be able to provide an update on that about on who's going to pick up that cost.
So part of this, board members, as you recall, when we brought the job description forward, I had met with the Polk Education Foundation Executive Board, and at the time they had requested a review for possible elevation of the position, primarily because of the type of seniority and experience that's required for this job. We are well beyond the days where someone could simply, with no fundraising experience, move into this role. And so initially, I was reluctant to request an elevation in the salary schedule or the pay or the position. However, once we received our applications, there was only one qualifying candidate. And that qualifying candidate currently makes substantially more than the top level of this current position. And so the request was, prior to me re-advertising the vacancy and including the one candidate who has already qualified, because the min-quals don't change, I wanted to seek board approval to elevate the position. And as Mr. Pitts pointed out, just to provide some clarity, you all know the role that the Polk Education Foundation provides, both in student scholarships, grants for our teachers, both public and private, and our charter schools. I shouldn't say both, but for all three of those. Additionally, they provide resources for other agencies. They offset some of our tutoring costs with reading programs. It's a fabulous program. They raise a considerable amount of money each year. So regardless of the cost, it is assuredly offset. I have had some conversations with a few of you, again, looking comparatively across the state. 67 school districts, you have 67 public education foundations. Each is called something unique, but they all have a similar structure. Some are self-funded, some are partially funded like we do. There will be some continuing conversation about this position. Both the district subsidizes multiple positions, including this level position, within the Polk Education Foundation organization, and then subsequently they offset about $150,000 worth of operating costs for other positioned personnel. We may, in the near future, find ourselves in a position, through additional discussion with their board and with this board, I would like to reverse that. I would like to move their CEO, for lack of a better phrase right now, to their funding, and then we offset the other costs. Why? I don't believe that my office should be directly involved in the hiring and retention and evaluation of this position. It is supposed to be an organization that's at arm's length of the school district. They are to work in partnership and in tandem with us, aligned to our goals and objectives. However, it does create some internal, arguably some conflict with how this role is ultimately managed and supported. So that should be a conversation we'll have in the near future. As Mr. Pitts pointed out, elevating this position is a minimal cost when you think about the overall benefit that we derive. I cannot disclose at this time. I'm a board member. There's at least one other board member here who's aware of the same information that I am. They're in the process of securing some additional donations this year, and I would say that some considerable donations that will help with the longevity of that program. But it's not, they are an organization, through their fundraising efforts, through Susan's work, really has thrived. And when you look at our Polk County's Education Foundation and compare it to other neighboring districts, two things stand out. Number one, that position salary is lower, and we've been talking about salary adjustments all along. Additionally to that, the amount of money and their reserve and the revenue that they generate each year is very much in alignment with the large urban districts in our state. So we do a very good job, And so I would recommend to the board that we elevate this position. Obviously, that's my request, because I believe we derive an inherent value. And an $18,000 investment on our behalf turns into millions of dollars in scholarship and grant opportunities for our students and staff. So that's my request before the board.
Question. Sorry.
Or Jason Pitts. Were you saying something?
I'm sorry?
Oh, I thought you were speaking. I'm sorry.
I started to say, are there
Oh.
any other questions? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I just want to clarify, and my board docs came up, but the document's not up. I had some notes written. First, I want to say, as someone who was on the executive board, after we started researching salaries, I was shocked at what Ms. Copeland had been paid compared to the other districts and what they were fundraising. I do know it was very important to a lot of people at one time to keep all of the funding, every dollar raised, going to the student scholarships is why we've never transferred it before. But at this time, I just want to clarify that we're not asking them to raise an additional $150,000, but in the future, we can talk about those. When you read that, it got a little confusing. So I'm glad thank you for explaining that. But in the future, we can talk about making that switch, because most foundations are not, foundation CEOs or chief executives are not employees of their districts. There's very few that are. But that work that's been done there has just grown tremendously. And I think to get someone to keep that going, and also to partner as we get somebody else in workforce and we get the community liaisons with a vision, like this person has to be able to partner with all of those groups and be able to manage fundraising and much more. So thanks to the superintendent for explaining that. And I look forward to finding the right candidate to help PEF grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cunningham.
Thank you, sir. And I agree with Superintendent Hyde's comments. This position is so important. I served on that board over my tenure, 3 different years. And it's an amazing group of dedicated individuals. So I fully support moving forward with this. But I do want to say, on the flip side, as a business owner, I'm a donor. Been a donor to the Polk Education Foundation now for 13 years for scholarships for graduating seniors. And just in the last 2 years, they have, which I thought was a great idea, incorporated a fee that you now pay in addition to your scholarship amount, which helps to offset some of those operational expenses. And I thought, when Susan, approached me as a donor and said, what do you think? I was like, this is great. So while it's a little bit more out of pocket for the donor, it makes sense that the money that you donate is going directly to students, because there's a portion that's pulled out of what you give. So just want to say, it's being run wonderfully. It's being managed great. The potential to increase, once again, with the right person, as we've all said, is tremendous. And so, yes, I support. If we've looked around to other areas and we need to increase our salary to make it appropriate, to me, it doesn't matter where it sits, whether it's underneath you or it sits with the foundation's board, which is a very, very capable, incredible board of individuals and community leaders throughout Polk County. I support it anyway, but I thought it was important to note that they did take out the operational costs to try to help offset some of that internal expenses, and we as donors have been paying that now. I've been paying it for 2 years, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Wyatt?
Thank you. It appears that this is set to come before us for a vote in June. Is that something that we would need to bring back to back so it can get advertised sooner, or?
If that's the case, that was an error. It was intended to come back to back.
Okay.
So
Can we
that
get
I
it
could
added to the
advertise
agenda for
that
tonight?
position.
That was my misunderstanding.
Okay.
But
I would be in favor of bringing it back to back so that we can get it advertised as soon as possible and hopefully get someone in over the summer. So I just wanted to make sure that was
Thank you.
we can make the changes.
possible.
We will make that change to the agenda prior to the meeting when we review
Thank you.
the agenda and revisions.
Thank you.
Dr. Allen?
Yeah, I would definitely speak in favor of this as well. I appreciate the research on that. I think the timing of it is the hard part, and as Ms. Miller noted, it's definitely an opportunity for us to say, Ms. Copeland, thank you for the work that she did. And I just think the timing of it was not necessarily the best as she wraps up her time, but we are extremely thankful for the work that she's done with that organization.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. That concludes this topic. There are no further questions or comments. Board members, on the remaining portion of the agenda, and there are 3 informational items: our typical donation report, our Head Start services report, and our March 2024 financial analysis. And largely that concludes the superintendent's report for the workshop.
Thank you, Superintendent. Board members, you do have a hard copy, the good old paper, and hopefully you have a pencil in your hand rather than a pen. If you need that as backup, if you're having issues. But we will now take this time to go through our agenda for tonight's meeting. Any questions at all before we begin? You know, as typical, we're going to look through A through C. Is just our normal opening. New administrators you'll see, as well as our nice list of special recognitions. I'm really excited to see such a large set of special recognitions coming through. So from here, I'll move down from D through H. If you have any questions on D through H. Ms.
I'm sorry, that was for before we started, but I can do it at the very end because it has to do with committee service and my attendance this evening, but I'll wait.
Gotcha. All right, we'll get to that momentarily. All right, so we're D through H. Any thoughts, questions on that? I had sent a message out to Superintendent Hyde, and he just mentioned as it relates to the grant, that the Stronger Connections Grant Award, I was asking a question about the community outreach facilitators, but that's going to come to us in the year-end review coming soon. Sections I through J. And then, Ms. Miller, you're recognized, I through J.
Oh, no, I should be cleared to the end.
All right, gotcha. And K through L. All right, sections M through O. Nothing there. And then we're looking at our action items for tonight. Mr. Sharpless, you're recognized.
On P6 and P7, my appointments to the half-cent sales tax oversight committee, I would like to be able to read their bios during that time.
Very good, thank you.
And I'll do the other one.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. I was going to ask that as well. Very good. I see no other comments on section Q, our public hearing. All right, then we have superintendent's report.
Yes, sir.
All right, anything from you, Mr. Bridges, this evening?
Actually, I will have a brief report, and it's simply because while the list of policies that had been brought to the board was complete, the list that was sent to me to read into the record was not. So there are a few that we've already made the advertisement, but I wanted, in the interest of transparency, to read those into the record so everybody would know what's coming.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
So as it relates to the public hearing, just to note on Q1, the public hearing for policy updates. This is a non-voted item, just so you're aware tonight. So we'll have an opportunity for public comments on that section, and then we'll just bring those forward. Now, I did seek a little bit of clarification on this as well, and Mr. Bridges, if you want to maybe address this. When these come back before us, since this is coming as a non-vote tonight, they'll come back to us in our next meeting. Are we going to accept these and bring these as a block?
I suspect that they will bring them as a block, but they will include in the item language that says if there's any single policy or group of policies that board members would like to pull out for separate discussion and vote, that you can do that. It'll be very much like we used to do at the beginning of a board meeting when board would be asked, is there anyone who would like to pull an item for a separate vote? So they'd be presented as a block, But in the event there is a desire to consider one or more separately, you'll be able to do so. That language will be included in the agenda item so that everybody will understand what we're doing.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bridges.
Yes, sir.
All right, and then we have our board members' reports tonight. I'll just go in chronological order today, or numerical order, actually. We'll go that way. And then we have public comments, and then we'll have adjournment as well. All right, any other questions on tonight's agenda? Very good. Now we'll move to our community and liaison updates. So if y'all want to bring those forward. I know Ms. Miller, you want to?
Yes, sir.
All right, stand by. Mr. Sharpless was first in line, so you're recognized.
Sure. I just wanted to say two things. First, my last Polk Vision Operating Board meeting, we talked about the Polk Vision Quality of Life Survey that's out there. I want to encourage the community as well as everyone in this room to fill that out. Polk Vision wants to have the opinions of Polk County citizens to be able to prioritize what quality of life is in different areas. You can go to that by going to the website jo.my/Polk Vision Survey. So that's one thing that I wanted to make sure that everyone knew about. The second thing, Dr. Allen will not be at the summer conference for FSBA. So as the alternate on the board of directors, I will be attending the meeting at the summer conference for the board of directors. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Mr. Sharpless, for stepping in. I'll be up and celebrating a 50-year anniversary for my in-laws, so thank you, thank you. All right, Ms. Miller, you're recognized.
Thanks. I just have one update. It's mainly just an acknowledgement. I won't be here this evening to share it, but one of Susan Copeland's retirement parties was with people who had served on the executive board for several years, and we were able to honor Mr. Hollis Hooks, who is a former school board member. And I just want to make sure that people know how much he has stayed dedicated and involved in our district and has helped serve on that executive committee for a very long time. So we appreciate the work of Mr. Hooks. Tonight is the Lake Gibson Senior Awards, where we give a family scholarship out to an individual who we will name tonight. It's a surprise. And I also will be handing out Polk Education Foundation scholarships, so I apologize that I will not be in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. All right, if we have no further business that comes before the board at this point, we will adjourn.